This video is a part 2 for Virginia gun grab when I talked about United Nations involvement. A conversation came up over at my militia. They were talking about the UN military forces and that type of stuff. And I pointed out to them, I jumped into the conversation a little bit later because of being extremely busy last week. The United Nations does not have its own combat troops per se. They do, or at least should have, some advisors or officers that are part of their staff. But how typically the United Nations does any type of peacekeeping or military operation, they ask for volunteers from the member nations. So there is no UN army or UN military force in the sense of the word or words as we know that. Okay, they don't have their own equivalent of a US Army or a US Marine Corps or a Russian Army or, you know, the German Bundeswehr. They don't have their own set dedicated military force that's all they do all the time, 100% of the time. So they always call for volunteers, and those volunteers bring equipment from home typically. If those troops do not have sufficient equipment, especially vehicles, it is not that uncommon that the United Nations will get some from some other location. And those, in theory, would be UN property. Or it could be donations from another country. But, now, there's a misinformation that's going around right now that there will be, at the rally on the 20th, that there will be National Guard deployed, there will be UN troops deployed, and all this. I doubt it. I think you'll probably see Virginia State Police there. You'll see Richmond Police Departments there. I highly doubt you're going to see National Guard deployed there. If it does happen where National Guard would get deployed, you can guarantee the deployment orders will get leaked into the alternative media, you know, within seconds as soon as they're issued. And it's going to add to the pot of what's going on out there very quickly. So I do not anticipate National Guard will be there. There will be no UN troops there because there is no United Nations military. It is entirely possible, and I expect this would be extremely likely they'll do this, there might be United Nations observers in plain clothes at the event. You know, they'll be walking around getting a feel of the situation, getting an assessment of the Patriot movement in the United States. Now, as I said, the United Nations more than likely does have advisors or officers that are part of their little headquarters up in New York. Their own little staff members. Those staff members, I think the information they have on the militia movement will be based primarily on what they're given by the the United States Department of Justice, and also from the Southern Poverty Law Center and the Anti-Defamation League. Those are the two that I usually see mentioned, cited in different articles and that stuff when they talk about the militia movement in the United States, that they're supposedly the subject matter experts, they know everything. So if the UN is considering some type of involvement here in the United States, they're going to want hands-on, you know, verifiable intel that they can get on the ground in Virginia. So expect that there's probably going to be some plainclothes people there. You're not going to be able to tell who they are because more than likely they're going to be American citizens. So you're not going to be able to tell because of accents or skin colors, the clothing they wear, or anything like that. These will be U.S. citizens that work for the UN, most likely. I don't anticipate they would cause any issues. They'd just be there for observations. You could also expect, and I have no doubts on this, there will be federal and state law enforcement that will be walking through the rally also in plain clothes. They'll probably be walking around with their little, iPhone, whatever, and they'll be getting pictures of people's faces and stuff. And that info will be getting collated or searched down on databases back at some off-site headquarters that they're going to have set up. People have mentioned that you can expect there's going to be drones there. Those drones are going to be scanning people in the crowd. They're going to be trying to identify people there also. Fully expect that you could see them going through and checking all of the hotel and motel and camping site registrations in so many mile radius of Richmond to determine who's there under business reasons, who's there for the rally, to identify people that are potentially in the militia movement. So it'll happen, and it would make sense. Now, we'll get into UN involvement on this. I'm going to give you a potential scenario on how things could play out over the next few months here, depending on what happens on the 20th. Now, the only intel I have on this stuff, like I said before, is coming from Mike Adams and Matt Brecken, where they said that they're hearing from their contacts a false flag has been green-lighted for Richmond. The only discussion going on is what will they do? And as I stated before, I think most likely the highest chance for something to happen will be some type of instigator inside the militia movement, or someone who's dressed up to look like militia. They'll go through, do something stupid, try to get some stuff kicked off, as big of a ruckus as possible, that can be plastered all over the news. Now, what could happen? It could be someone taking shots at Antifa. It could be someone taking shots at Virginia legislators. And if you're wondering more on this, check the other videos I've already done. The Thoughts and Warnings video goes over this. So we had the rally on the 20th. Something occurs. Then the ball's rolling. They're starting to get the outcome that they want. And when I mean they, I mean the people that are trying to cause the chaos. The people that have this little game plan that they're pushing for. Globalists, deep state, their little leftist minions. Chaos is ensuing. The laws are passed in Virginia. Stuff is starting to build up to a boil. It's starting to boil over the top of the pot. That chaos stew is ready. And it builds up. You start having confrontations between patriots and law enforcement. You start having confrontations with law enforcement against law enforcement. You have National Guard getting orders to deploy because of the deteriorating law enforcement situation in the state, because anarchy is starting to reign. Officers are getting the blue flu. They're not reporting into work. Ones that are reporting into work are getting stressed out, and they're taking it out on the people. It all keeps building, all keeps adding into it. You have shootings occurring, potentially bombings occurring, which no one can identify who. The media is going to be talking nonstop about, oh, this is militias attacking the government. And as I said before, a lot of that stuff very likely will be from leftist groups, your little Antifas and that stuff. Add in there MS-13 and other narco gangs being paid to do this stuff. They're not going to do it for their own self-interest. They're doing it because they're paid to. We've heard over the last 2 years here, the stuff's been coming out in investigative reports on how deeply involved the Democratic Party is with those narco gangs and use them as their own little private black ops people on the side to take care of certain issues for certain politicians. So that's why I think they might get employed in Virginia to add to the chaos. And then you also had the possibility you get your little jihadis are going to want to get involved too, or potentially be paid to get involved. So that's where, the source of your little bombings are going to happen. Your IEDs, your truck bombs, and all that stuff. It'll just keep feeding into the situation. Virginia will break down into anarchy. You're going to have some areas where patriots are maintaining control. Things are not falling apart. You're going to have other areas where law enforcement is still maintaining control and local government is maintaining control. But you're going to have some areas, especially in the big cities, it's just probably going to be a free-for-all. It's going to be anarchy. And that's what they're going to concentrate on the news. Things will spread outward after some set period of time. I don't know. Could be a few weeks, could be a month. I don't know. I'm not involved in the operational planning for the other side on this stuff. I don't know what they have planned out, what they're wargaming right now. But it will spread out from Virginia. It'll spread over into Kentucky, down into Tennessee, North Carolina. It'll go into Maryland, West Virginia, probably up into Pennsylvania. It'll just spread outward. That little spreading outward, I anticipate, would be the leftist groups being activated, especially Antifa. They've been getting stoked up for this type of thing too. They've been told about how Trump needs to go, how all Trump supporters are Nazis, punch a Nazi, kill a Nazi, and all that stuff. They're getting stoked up for a reason, and this might be that reason to help add to the chaos. So they're out there, they're gunning people down, they're doing whatever that they're told to. And things start then spreading from there. I anticipate at first, for at least the first few weeks, it's just going to be Virginia and the surrounding states. But then it's going to start happening in other places. Like you'll see up in Portland, Oregon and stuff. You'll probably see Antifa going nuts up in there. I mean, we've seen how they've been over this last year. Imagine if they get the green light to do whatever they want now. So then they start pulling out those full auto AKs and start hosing down prayer rallies and whatever. Now someone's going to say, well, where's your intel for these full auto AKs? It's come out in the news over the last year to 2 years here. Antifa members getting caught with full auto AKs. They've been getting caught with IEDs. They've been getting caught with plans for causing uprisings. It's not covered on your ABCs, NBCs, CNNs, MSNBCs, or Fox News. They will not cover it on the major networks. It is only local media. People notice it in the local media, and then the word spreads through the patriot community from there. That's how we find out about this stuff. So we know they are armed with this stuff. They were given this stuff. But chaos will start spreading across the country. Now, as this is going on, you're going to have Trump in D.C. He's going to try getting a handle on the situation. He's asking his cabinet, he's asking his advisors, what's going on? Who's causing the problems? Who's the ones behind this? Is this being caused by Iran? Because everyone's thinking about Iran right now. Is this being caused by Russia? Is this being caused by China? Is this being caused by narco gangs? Is this being caused by leftists? And no one's really going to tell them much of nothing. If they give him any type of information, it's probably going to be wrong. They'll probably tell him that, oh, this is being caused by militias who are going insane and lashing out because they think they're going to lose the elections and all this. I think, as I said before, they're going to try to hamstring Trump. They're going to make sure that the orders that he puts out to try to control the situation will not go out. Or they'll take those orders and they'll replace them with something else to add to the chaos, add to the problems. The media will continue with the narrative that Trump is ineffectual. Trump is the cause for this stuff. He wants this to happen because if he didn't want it to happen, if he was going to try to stop it, he would do it by doing the following situation and this and this and this. That's where it comes into the wrong orders are going out. They're preventing those orders from being enacted. Chaos keeps going on. We're getting into that 1 month mark. We're getting into that 2 month mark. We got stuff that's going on across the country. It's not going to be everywhere. It's primarily going to be in your big cities. You might have a few attacks that'll happen out in the countryside, like your church shootings and stuff. Let's say you get a county board meeting where people are talking about a Second Amendment sanctuary because of the chaos and stuff, or they're talking about creating their own county militia. Well, boom, a bomb goes off during that county meeting, which will get blamed on the militia. Or Antifa member will come in and gun everyone down while they're wearing camouflage with a militia patch on their shoulder. You know, leaving behind patriot materials, you know, pamphlets, books, whatever. Chaos is building 1 month, 2 months. While this is going on, the United Nations up in New York, they're talking about what's going on in America, how Trump is losing control. They're trying to tell Trump, get a hold of the situation or we will. As I've said before, the United States is a major world player. If the United States goes down, it's going to be felt all over the world. It'll be felt in the financial markets. It'll be felt in the trade markets. It will be felt by defense, by countries around the world for their defense. If the United States is gone, then their enemies are going to come in and scoop them up, take them out. And for countries like that, I'm thinking of places like Taiwan. The only reason Taiwan still exists is because of the United States military. Another place that exists only because of the U.S. government, the U.S. military, is Israel. Yes, I'm aware they have nukes, but I don't think a bunch of jihadis would give a flying rat's ass about that. So you got emergency meetings going on at the United Nations. The chaos is spreading across the United States. It's all getting worse and worse and worse until the UN finally has their vote and determines we need to stabilize the United States. We need to remove Trump from office. They contact certain people in government to back them in a potential coup or reorganization. I'm sure they'll probably call it. They won't call it a coup. To remove Trump and anyone loyal to him from government while they begin their peacekeeping operations. Now, at this point, we're probably looking at 2, maybe 3 months in. So maybe we're looking at potentially March, April timeframe as a guess here. Gun confiscations have been launched inside Virginia by this point to try to disarm the people, get a control of the anarchy. That just adds to the chaos and so forth. Now, why do I think the United Nations would get involved? 1, world player. 2, we're starting to see now stories coming out which are really suspicious. Okay? Source on this. The channel Guns and Gadgets has done reports recently over the past few weeks here. 1 about the Chinese government, the Chinese Communist Party, talking about disturbing gun ownership in the United States. Another video, the United Nations posting job openings for disarmament officers. These disarmament officers are required to know English. So these are 2 things that are, you know, kind of things that make you go, situations. You got to wonder what's going on here. I've heard a few other stories about comments that officials at the UN have made about the gun control stuff in Virginia, but I can't confirm those, and so I'm not going to go into that any further. But I will put the links to the videos from Guns and Gadgets in the description of this video. Now, the actual UN deployment itself. When this actually does occur, remember, the United States is in chaos. We got stuff that's going on all over the place. We have military units that are deserting. We have police that are not reporting in and stuff. The situation is clearly getting out of control. Militias are organizing and deploying across the United States. Not everywhere. Like I said, there's going to be areas where nothing's happening. So you're going to have militias that are still in a wait-and-see stance. While in other areas where there is problems going on, you're going to have militias that will be in the field, trying to control the anarchy, trying to get a handle of the situation, find out what's occurring, who's a good guy, who's a bad guy. No one's going to know for sure. Now, what I think would happen in a potential UN invasion scenario, and that's what it is. The media will talk about it. It's deployment of peacekeepers. It's a freaking invasion. I believe the initial wave of this invasion will come in on commercial airliners and shipping into harbors. This could be done. It has been done in the past. As I mentioned, Afghanistan, 1979, the first wave of Soviet troops coming into Afghanistan was on commercial airliners. So we have airplanes coming in from overseas. Maybe we have a situation where we have a couple aircraft coming in. They're flying a very tight formation. The radar cannot distinguish there's more than one aircraft. It may show there's just one blip, especially if you do not have a transponder turned on more than one aircraft. So you have that one aircraft that's putting out the transponder signal stating that it's such and such airliner, which is already on the schedule. In actuality, you have 2, maybe 3 aircraft that are there. Maybe one of them is that airliner filled with troops, and then maybe 2 cargo aircraft with support equipment and additional troops. They come in on the airports, especially airports that are co-located with air guard reserves and that stuff. So you're going to have your little support bases. You see this a lot around major airports. You're going to have the airport, and then literally part of it you have an Air National Guard base. So they'll come in. You'll probably have multiple flights coming into these same airports at the same time, one right after another. The control tower is not going to know what's going on until they see, you know, hey, we're supposed to have one aircraft coming in, but there's 2 aircraft right behind it. You know, they spread out as they're coming in so that they can land one behind the other. The control tower is going nuts trying to figure out, well, what's going on here? We're supposed to have one 747 or an Airbus coming in, but we got the one airliner, and then right behind it are 2 troop transports, some type of cargo aircraft. They don't know who because there's no markings on the aircraft. The stuff lands. You got the airliner that comes in first, then you got the 2 cargo aircraft right behind it. They maneuver together to a set location near a terminal. Maybe one of the aircraft goes over, or the next set of aircraft goes over to the National Guard side of the base. And then you get the troops that are coming right out of the aircraft. Now, out of the commercial airliner, how are they going to do that? They need the ramps and all that to get out. No, they don't. There's emergency slides. They pop those doors open, hit those emergency slides, and those paratroopers start coming down those slides. They're going in to secure air traffic control. They're trying to secure the communication center. They're trying to secure the airport police station. Get those cops arrested. Get a hold of the area. Control the situation. Over on the National Guard side, you got those paratroopers are going through. They're gunning down anyone. They're not trying to take prisoners. They're going through. They're shooting down the guardsmen. They're shooting down the reservists. They're shooting down the civilian contractors. Just gunning them, taking them out. Maybe you'll have out the back of some of those cargo aircraft, you'll see deployment of airborne vehicles along the lines of BMD-2s, BMD-3s, Russian-made. You also have German Weasels, which are aircraft deployable armored vehicles. You would also have your wheeled vehicles, say your Land Rovers, these types of vehicles along those lines that'll come out and they'll be trying to secure the roadways coming in. There'll be Russian busting through the fence line right off the airfield, going out, cutting off those roads, stopping the situation, getting those that traffic that's on the road coming in to stop, maybe cause a little accident out there, which will prevent anyone from coming in to support the facility. You'll probably have air defense teams that'll come out and they'll start setting up around the runways. They'll be out there with their American Stingers. They'll be out there with the SA-16s and other equivalents from around the world. These troops that are coming in will be airborne and special operations. At the same time this is going on, you're probably going to have a similar operation that's going to be happening at major harbors to secure the major harbor. This will be the initial wave of the assault. They're trying to secure their entry points. Now after this is done, these are secure, that's when you're going to have your second wave. Second wave will probably be coming in within 24 hours. Second wave will be troop ships and cargo ships. They will be coming into those major seaports along the East Coast and the West Coast. I don't anticipate too much coming in from down here. If anything does come in on the Gulf of Mexico, it'll probably be down here in Texas to try to assist with securing oil fields and other major issues down there, places like Fort Hood. You're going to have Marines that are going to offload from the ships and start taking over those harbors, start securing the areas. They'll be offloading light armor. I don't anticipate they'd be offloading heavy armor at this point. It'll be light armor. You'll probably see infantry fighting vehicles, light tanks, same thing. You'll see MRAPs, gun trucks. The troops coming in on the harbors, they're going to be deploying out from the harbor fairly quickly, probably within an hour to 2 hours, going out and securing your National Guard and Army Reserve armories that are within that city, maybe within so many miles of that port of that city. You'll have the same situation at the airports. You got that second wave that's coming in on the harbors. You're going to have a second wave that's going to come in through the airports. Also, more troops that are coming in on more transport aircraft and more commercial airliners. They're offloading and they're spreading out also, doing the same thing. They've secured the airport. Now they're going to go through. They're going to try securing police stations. They're going to try securing your National Guard and Reserve armories. It would not be beyond the realm of possibility you could see airborne drops right onto military depots, locations where aircraft and vehicles and munitions are stored and potentially manufactured. So that's going on. This will be going on. You're going to have chaos reigning across the country. Most of the militia across the United States will have no idea what's going on these major ports of entry. Why? Because you'll potentially see the rolling blackouts. You'll see the internet going down, or it'll be spotty. You'll have cell phones aren't working correctly. I think or suspect that the stuff that we were hearing about, what was going on over in California in 2019 with blackouts and cell phone interruptions, cutting out the radio relay stations that are always up because everyone uses them. I think that was a test case for this scenario. You're going to see chaos across the country. No information's really going out. If any news reports go out, like I said, the major media is going to talk about it's a deployment of peacekeepers who are here to try to help get a hold of the anarchy in the areas that are most affected. So they'll talk about, oh, there's troops that came in over here and the Carolinas and in Virginia and potentially up in Maryland. You know, they're just deploying in here to try to assist the locals get a hold of the situation. They won't tell you that it's going on countrywide. So your third wave will come in probably within a week to 2 weeks after. That's where you're going to see a lot of the cannon fodder infantry. That's when you're going to start seeing additional equipment coming in from overseas. Now, people are probably saying, well, what about the U.S. military? There's no way we're going to allow this to happen. The troops that know what's going on will stand and fight. It doesn't matter if they are loyal to the deep state. This, at this point, is an invasion of the United States, and they are required to fight. So they will. Troops overseas, they're a write-off. Okay, I half suspect that's why we have this stuff going on in the Middle East right now, especially with Iran. They're trying to get as many troops out of the United States as possible, especially the more better trained, better equipped troops like the 82nd Airborne. You have a lot of special operations which is operating out of Syria, which does not need to be there. Trump has already ordered them that they're supposed to be home, but for some reason they're still there. You have troops in Afghanistan that don't need to be there. We have troops around the world and bases around the world. I have a feeling that once the United Nations gives the a start date for the operation, on this day that the stuff starts here in the United States, that same day you're going to see those troops overseas getting wiped out. Whatever country it is they're in, and it won't matter, they're going to get betrayed and they're going to get wiped out. You're going to see local military coming in, and they're going to come on to base. They're going to take it over. They're going to capture our equipment. They're going to capture our weapons. They're going to capture our supplies. That stuff will then be used in the operations in the United States against us. So all that aircraft, all those ships and that stuff, they're going to get new markings put on them, and they're going to be coming in as part of the peacekeeping force. All those rifles are going to get passed off. The ammunition's going to get used. The rations, the vehicles, everything. It'll be used against us. Well, what's going to happen to the troops themselves, to those Air Force personnel, to the Navy personnel, to the Marines, to the Army troops, and our U.S. contractors overseas? If any of them surrender, they're probably going to get a bullet in the back of the head right after the battle, as soon as the area is secured. They ain't going to keep them as prisoners. They're going to kill them. Because as long as they're alive, they're a liability. It's going to chew up assets. So they're going to get killed. Now, I know people are going to say it's never going to happen. We have too many allies. They'll come in and support us. No, they won't. Okay, they're probably going to be coming in, but they ain't going to be coming to help us. They're going to be helping our massive invasion scenario that's going on. The United States, you got to keep this in mind. The United States has acted horribly overseas for decades. And I'm not just talking U.S. military involvement. I'm also talking the citizens, our tourists and stuff going overseas. How many times have we heard this over the years about arrogant Americans in countries overseas on vacation? That's being stoked for a reason, okay? You're also going to have the stuff where we hear about atrocities or crimes committed against, locals by Americans and stuff. That's being done to get those people in other countries psyched up to want to get involved in the United States. So that their troops, when they come over here, they're going to look at it as they're coming to put Americans in their place, teach them what the world is really like. You're going to have troops that would come in from third world countries that I think they're going to be the worst ones of the batch. They're going to come in with the purpose of basically acting like, the Mongol hordes. They're going to come in, rape, pillage, teach America what the world is actually like. You're going to have countries that when this stuff's being discussed at the UN without the United States being present, you're going to have countries that are going to be lined up around the block wanting to be part of this, wanting to put troops in, wanting to support with equipment, with whatever they can for this operation to teach the United States a lesson, to bring us down a notch or two. I anticipate that the ones that are going to be primarily in command of this stuff, the ones that are going to have the largest percentage of involvement, would be Communist China and Putin's Russia. Now, people are probably going to say, well, what about the European Union? Yes, the EU would probably get, their troops would get primarily deployed up in the Northeast. I think you're going to see basically a resurgence of the old colonial model for their militaries. I think you're going to see a lot of the migrants that came into Europe are going to end up being their cannon fodder, their foot soldiers, and they're going to be serving underneath European officers. Russia, I anticipate, would secure Alaska right away because that's always been a major thing for them. They've always wanted Alaska back. Hawaii will probably get taken over by the Chi-Coms. Anticipate the West Coast all the way up to the Rockies will be controlled by the Chinese military. Canadians, I've always heard their anticipated deployment area is up in here. So basically from North Dakota over to Michigan, this area in here, because there's been a lot of Canadian troops that have trained up in here with Guard and Reserve units. And I've heard for years, even when I was in the military, rumors that if anything ever happens, this is where the Canadians would be coming in at. That's why they train with the units up there. You could see troops from Central America, South America, Mexico, they're going to be involved down in here. They'll want to get involved over here, but I don't think the Chinese are going to let them. So they'll probably be spread in from New Mexico, maybe over to the Mississippi River, probably as far north as the southern border of Kansas. Now, there's still huge areas in here. I have no idea who's going to go in there. But quite frankly, I don't think it's going to matter. It's going to be whoever shows up has the troops at the time to be able to cover that area. Nations you could expect that are going to be in the lead on supplying troops that you usually see. India, Bangladesh, Pakistan, Communist China is a guaranteed. Russia is a guaranteed. Nigeria is one that I hear quite a bit. There's a few other African nations that are referred to as African Union troops or something like that. It's like a group of like 6 to 8 countries that always operate together during UN operations. You can guarantee they're going to have contingents here. So, and like I said, most of us here in the United States, we're not going to have an idea what's going on because it's going to be chaos in the communications network. We're not going to know what's happening until it's right in front of us. So, and as people have pointed out, as soon as the first actual troop in UN Blue Helmet puts a foot on the ground in the United States for any type of peacekeeping operation, it is an invasion. Yes, it is, and it will be a huge unifying event for the U.S. people. That'll definitely shift a huge percentage of the fence sitters over to the Patriot side at that point. So, You'll still have a few elements that are loyal to the deep state, loyal to the globalists, but I don't think it's going to be as many as what they had anticipated. I think that's one of the reasons why they've been pushing this stuff in the Middle East so hard over the last year here. Why the military, the Pentagon has been ignoring orders from Trump a lot over the last year, if you're aware of it or not. He's given orders for troops to get pulled out of Syria, troops to get pulled out of Iraq, troops to get pulled out of Afghanistan. Yes, there are still troops in Iraq. For those of you that say, no, there isn't. Yes, there are. There's just not as many. He's been giving orders that those troops need to be brought back to America now, but the Pentagon has not been issuing the orders. So you somewhat get an idea of what could happen here. I'm not saying this is the only scenario. This is the scenario I think is the most likely. And I got a feeling that an actual, combat element under a UN flag would not step foot in the United States till probably 2 to 3 months after chaos begins. So, could they do it before that? Could they do it later than that? Yes. It's just guesswork on this. I'm just wargaming this out myself. So, let's hear in the comments, is this a plausible scenario? Do you think consider another scenario as more likely? Oh, I should mention, nuclear weapons and chemical weapons. Chemical weapons are no longer stored in the United States. They're stored in our territories overseas for disposal. The last stockpiles of chemical weapons in the U.S., admitted stockpiles of chemical weapons, were destroyed back in the 90s. Nuclear weapons in the United States, those will be secured fairly quickly. I anticipate they'll probably get secured in the first wave by special operations troops. So as those troop transports are coming in, we got special operations that are dropping off, going to secure the bases, and they'll probably drop right on the bases. They'll secure the command centers and all that. They'll secure the launch bunkers, the command bunkers and stuff for the launch sites. They'll secure the depots and all that stuff. Anticipate that they'll probably have people already on the ground, plain clothes, spread out around the country for that purpose also, before the first wave comes in. So, how long is this video? Ooh, long one. Okay, now let's get a discussion going. How feasible is this? This is, like I said, this is just a likely scenario. Who knows what their actual battle plan is, if they even have one. But as I mentioned, there's just some weird things that are appearing in the news that kind of point towards this being a likelihood. The UN disarmament officers' postings, the rumblings out of the Chinese government. Those are just the two that I can post videos on for backing up. I've heard rumors on other stuff, or heard talk about other little mentionings that have been done by UN officials up in New York, but I haven't been able to confirm any of it. That's why I'm not going to go more deeper into it. But let's get the conversation going. Now, for all my engineer brothers in the Patriot and militia movements, always remember, essayons.